Hey everybody, we are back with another episode of Can't Stop Snapping, the official podcast of MarvelSnapZone.com. We are back with another great episode this week. Again, following up on my shout out from last week, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania comes out this week. It will be out the night that this podcast episode releases. Very excited to see the movie, and I'll be giving my small breakdown about that, my thoughts on the movie next week. One other thing I wanted to give a shout out about before we jump into today's episode is that I have been getting set up to stream playing Marvel Snap. I recently, because of all the great support of you listening to the podcast, I've been able to save up some money and purchase a new computer and a new setup to be able to stream and edit and record more easily. So I will be doing some streams on Twitch. I don't know the exact schedule or how frequently this will be, but if you wouldn't mind going to twitch.tv and looking up Blue Spruce 17, that's BLUESPRUCE17. That is where I will be streaming from. I hope to stream once or twice this week, but then I will be going on a vacation, so I won't be able to stream for a couple more weeks. But if you will follow me, that way you will be able to know when I go live. I'd love to have you stop by. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the podcast, and I'd love to have you join me for playing some Marvel Snap. With all that being said, and without further ado, let's jump into today's episode. Hey everybody, we are back with another episode of Can't Stop Snapping, the official podcast of MarvelSnapZone.com. Today we have some of our normal topics. We're going to be breaking down the latest card in Marvel Snap as well as the latest location. But we also have a slew of other topics that we want to bring up that, kind of apply to everybody, maybe in a different way, and we'll have some interesting conversation. I am joined by returning guest, Chalker7. Chalker, thank you for being here.
Oh, well, thanks so much for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, as you and me were kind of conversing over the last week or so, you brought up some topics, so we'll tantalize the audience here by not telling them what those topics are quite yet, but we will get to those after our kind of normal introductory topics here. So let's dive right into the newest card. So let me read that for the listeners here. The latest card in Marvel Snap this week is Ghost. Ghost is a 1-cost, 2-power card that reads, ongoing, your cards are always revealed last. And then in parentheses it says, their on-reveal abilities happen last. What are your initial thoughts? You started to laugh there. I want to hear what you think.
The double clarification, I had forgotten about the second line there. That's good because it's not obvious, right? Priority is clear to people that are quite experienced and understand what's going on, right? But I forgot that having the clarification might be good. That's what I was laughing at. But I think it's really interesting. I think Ghost is awesome because it is the first card that's been released thus far that interferes or manipulates priority in any way, and that can be a incredibly powerful utility. It's not a big body, but it's very, very interesting. There's a lot of implications here, right? Like anytime you want to go second and you want to make sure that your opponent's cards get revealed first, there's a handful of things I can think of off the top of my head. Like, you want to make sure your Shang-Chi goes off after they drop their giant cards at the very end, or you want to make sure that your Enchantress goes off to steal whatever ongoings or cancel out whatever ongoings they've dropped down at the end of the game. Imagine Patriot or whatever. That's going to be pretty easily canceled if you sniff it out in advance. So that's pretty cool. There's a lot of places I think Ghost is going to be in. It's the card that I currently have pinned in my shop, my token shop. I'm looking forward to having that when I get the tokens back.
Well, I think a couple interesting things to build on what you just said. Everything you just said, exactly right? Like it maybe protects you from that, or you make sure you get your Shang-Chi off on turn 6 to knock out their big card they're going to play down. You make sure they lay down all of their ongoing cards before you throw your Enchantress. There's a lot of these things where it kind of works with the tech cards in the game, but I also think it works in reverse on those things, right? It's a protection to you to say, I'm going to make sure my opponent flips their Shang-Chi and their Enchantress before my cards are revealed, right? So then I don't lose my Iron Man, or I don't lose my Infinite, or something like that, right? So I think it's interesting because it's both, it can kind of be an offensive or a defensive card in that regard, right?
100%.
I think that's interesting. Another thing I think is interesting is that we've kind of been on a streak the last couple of cards that have come out where they're all higher cost, right? We have
Mm.
Modoc obviously as the season pass card, but then before that, we had Shadow King, Dazzler. Uh, I'm trying to remember. There's a couple other 4 cost cards, but they've all kind of been higher cost cards for a little while now. We've been on this streak, so having kind of a 1 cost card that can really be slotted in so many places, and we're going to have obviously more conversation here about some of the potential cards you want to play with Ghost, but I think it's just very different than the last few cards that we've got, because it's kind of this so much versatility, potential, and it's a low cost card. So really, you can slot this into a lot of existing archetypes and types of decks, right?
Yeah, totally. And low cost cards, just to add on to that, are difficult in all card games to design and balance, right? They're really risky. If you put too much flash on there, there's not as much design space. And if you have a real expensive high cost card, you can put a ton of card text and a kind of ton of stats and everything, and you can only play one of those over the course of the game. But if you have too much power on a low cost card, it's really really risky. So I think that it's there's a reason why there aren't very many of them out there. They haven't been releasing them. So it's cool. I'm super, super stoked that they are coming out with another one for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and obviously, we brought this up. We bring this up often, but like, not a lot of people are probably going to have Ghost at the beginning, just with the current structure of obtaining new Series 5 cards. You need to have the collector's tokens. Like we've already, you said you're saving yours up right now, but then it's
Mhm.
obviously you got to wait for it to pop up in your shop and pin it, and that whole thing. So some of these things that we're going to speculate on will be kind of that. I mean, we think it will be good with certain cards, but time will tell which cards it works with best. I think we've already named some of the things like Shang-Chi, Enchantress. Obviously, along with that, like a Killmonger, right?
Mhm.
Both from an offensive or defensive perspective. Um, what other cards do you kind of see potential synergies with this card?
The protection stuff that you were mentioning is really where it's at for me. Like null, making sure
Mm,
that you're not going to get that killed or destroyed at the end of the game, or a death or something like that. Or you mentioned Iron Man. Anything that you really want to guard and make sure that is going to show up is going to be interesting. And I think there's going to be a bunch of movement in the future too. As cards come out, the place where I think that Ghost is really going to shine is going to be in like battle mode and in like the tournament scene, because I think that it
mm,
really will be useful in a lot of different decks, but it's mostly going to be useful for like surprising your opponent or protecting your own stuff. And I don't know if that's going to be. I don't know if there's a single deck that slots into that works well on ladder, but I'm also not the ladder expert out there, so I might not be the best person to say what's gonna be working at the infinite ranks. It's just not the way my brain works, and it's not the targeting I'm looking for.
no, that makes a lot of sense. I agree with you. Yeah, null. Obviously, kind of generally, big power cards you can help
Yeah.
protect against. Ongoing cards you can help protect against. Something that I have seen people kind of theorize, and I've seen at least one person try out. I was watching a stream last night. Is with hazmat, right?
Mm,
It's kind of a hazmat is people got more excited about hazmat once Luke Cage came out, which obviously blocks your cards from the negative effect of hazmat lowering the power of your cards. But it's still, I would say, hasn't found the strongest place in the meta. Right? It's fun to play, and it's fun when you pull it off, maybe with a Wong to double the effect, etc. Um, but one of the downsides is potentially, depending on who has priority later in the game, when you want to play hazmat,
hmm.
you're gonna flip hazmat, and maybe not all of your opponent's cards are revealed yet, right?
Totally. Yeah. 100%.
Uh, and so I think that's an interesting combo there. That kind of guarantees your opponent's board is going to be as filled as it will be, and you'll be able to get that full hazmat off.
Yeah. Good call. I've tried the Luke Cage hazmat combo quite a few times, and while you're right, it's fun. I can't get it to work consistently at all. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
One or two other cards I wanted to mention. Valkyrie, right? Kind of
Mm,
similar. Like Valkyrie can be really good, but if your opponent, if you have priority, then your opponent may be flipping up a card after your Valkyrie goes
yeah.
and lowers
Yeah.
all of their cards to 3, which kind of doesn't help you as much. And then the other one is Titania. That may be good. You won't, sometimes you want to drop Titania on the last turn of the game, and you don't want her to flip to the other side of the board.
Yeah.
So this
Totally.
kind of guarantees that if she's the last card you play, then she's not going to flip over to your opponent's board.
Yeah. 5 extra power. That's a good plan. Totally.
Yeah. One thing, so we've talked some of these synergies. I think there's a lot that could be done, right? You can kind of look at this at the perspective of, okay, what does every on reveal card do, and is it better to have that revealed later, right? So as more cards are added to the game, you're always going to be looking, okay, can I pull Ghost into this deck? Is that going to help this card be better? One thing that I would love to understand how it works, which I don't know if you've seen anybody streaming with the card yet, but if you have Ghost on the board, let's say it's turn 6, and you have priority, right? Because you are winning 2 locations. But then your opponent plays Enchantress, and it disables Ghost's ability. Does it then pivot to your cards revealing because then you actually have priority that turn? Does that
I
make
haven't.
sense?
It does make sense what you're saying and describing. I don't know if the engine would handle that. That sounds. I would be very curious to see where that ends up.
Yeah.
I don't have an answer to that. The second dinner team, while they're listening to this in their conference room in the weekly thing, maybe they'll message you and answer it
Yeah,
after that.
that's usually how it goes. You know, they got their DMs with me. So no, I agree with you. I would imagine it would not work that way, right? Because it's kind of like once your turn has started and your cards are revealing, it's kind of like your turn resolves and then your opponent your
Yeah,
opponent's turn resolves. But it's like if you technically have priority, this doesn't say that like you lose that priority. It just says your
yeah.
cards are revealed last, and if that ability is gone, I'm curious at what happens.
Yeah, I guess like the closest thing that I could compare to that is like, let's say there's a limbo on board and your opponent either Storm or Scarlet Witches it or something like that on turn 6. Um, your cards flip over after that, right? It doesn't immediately end the game.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah, so I think that is adjacent to the question that you asked, but I don't know if that's correct or not. I don't know.
Yeah. I just want to say one thing. I think it's funny you said Storm or Scarlet Witch, and I knew you wouldn't say Rhino, the location, because we know nobody's doing that. So
You're totally right. Yeah.
uh, uh, anyway, sorry, that's a little
Yeah.
sidetrack. So
Yeah.
I think Ghost is an interesting card. I'm excited for. It's one of those cards I just really want to see in a lot of people's hands and see
Yeah.
how it goes.
Yeah.
Um, and
It
just see what the
doesn't
long term potential is. Yeah, go ahead.
totally. I don't think it obviously slots into anything, but I do think that there's going to be a lot of people using it. And that's what I was sort of saying. I think that Ghost is going to show up in the tournament and battle mode scene. And if there's like a serious competitive mode in that, because it really feels like a, uh, psyching out your opponent one-on-one kind of card.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a high skill level, high thought process, the things you could do with that card, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So very interesting. I'm excited to see more play and eventually unlock the card. It's not the one I have pinned right now. Actually, now that I think about it, I don't have any cards pinned right now because I just bought one last night. So
Huh.
I probably should check what's in my shop. I'll check in on that after this recording. But
There you go.
let's shift here. I think there's more we could go into and kind of theory
Yeah.
craft some decks, but like I said, I think the general thought on Ghost is that Ghost could be slotted in a lot of decks. So
Yep.
I want to talk Quantum Tunnel with you.
Oh yeah.
We're about, I don't know, maybe 18 hours into the 48 hours of having this as the featured location. So Quantum Tunnel reads: when you play a card here, swap it with a card in your deck. So it is Lockjaw the location, right?
Lockjaw without a body.
Yep. So I don't know about you, but I've been playing, but also seeing a lot of Thanos is the first thing that comes to mind.
Sure.
I think getting those stones and being able to play them into this location without having to play Lockjaw down, right? You're not waiting to turn 3 to be able to
Hmm.
get Lockjaw on the board. I think has been very powerful. But what else have you seen, or have you been seeing
Okay.
kind of the same?
So I have a deck that I have been playing last night and today that I totally created myself. I haven't. I made it up on the fly. I haven't seen anyone else talking about this, but I called it Dark Hawk Rocks, and it is so much enjoyment because there's 3 cards that are the centerpieces here. It's first Dark Hawk, which is the 4/1 ongoing +2 power for each card in your opponent's deck. And the reason I think that card works really good with this location is your opponent, if they're playing off of the tunnel, they're not drawing extra cards. They're putting extra cards back into their deck. So I've been noticing decks are staying a little bit bigger. And then I've been putting both Korg and Rock Slide in there to toss extra rocks back into their deck that they might end up swapping out accidentally. So they're thinning their deck out. Well, not really.
Mm.
They're thickening their deck and making the cards a little bit weaker. And I've been putting extra cards like Wong and Absorbing Man in there to toss extra rocks in. And I've also got Sandman in there and Ronin, so they can't play too many cards, and hopefully their hands are getting pretty thick. I don't know if it's really good, but it's been a lot of fun putting a lot of rocks in people's decks and seeing them swap those out rather than whatever good cards are out there. And I've been winning a lot, but of course my ranking is pretty low. So, don't take this deck to the. I don't think it's going to go to infinite over the next couple of days, but it's pretty cool to try and keep them from capitalizing on the location too much.
Yeah, no, and I think that's one of the things we always want to look at when we talk locations, right? It's easy to talk, okay, this synergizes well with X card, right?
Mhm.
Thanos, your Lockjaw deck, whatever that looks like, right?
Yeah, Lockjaw, Blast,
But
Infinite,
yeah,
all those common things that you've seen
yeah,
happen before. I think, yeah,
and it's easy for us to know that and say that, but I think one of the trickier things sometimes is, okay, what is kind of the anti meta against this location, right? What is
yeah.
defensive deck, right? So I think you bring up a great thought there with kind of well, I'm assuming you have Zabu in the deck, but
I do have
actually,
Zabu. I do have Zabu in the deck, indeed.
yeah,
Yes.
so like because you named several 4-cost cards, right? So you're
Hmm.
lowering the 3 cost. You're getting Wong on the board maybe a little early. You're able to load the rocks up in your opponent's location. You're able to get Darkhawk down, maybe a Mystique off, right? It's our classic like Hawk deck with a little bit of variance where you're throwing in the Sandman, the Ronin, right? Which I think is a
Yeah,
spin, but it kind of works with this location, right? More
yeah,
than
yeah, yeah.
without.
I got Iceman in there too, just to hopefully
Mm,
prevent them from playing something. I don't know. It's interesting, but it's a classic Darkhawk deck for sure. And I
yeah.
think that works pretty good. I've been having fun with it at
No,
least.
yeah, no, I think that's really interesting. I'll probably try some of that out later today because I've kind of been playing the Thanos. I've been playing a little bit of negative,
Mm.
Mr. Negative, right? Because I mean, it's a little tricky because like you don't want to play anything into that location really until you've flipped your cards in your deck. But then also you're playing out cards there, typically in a Mr. Negative deck that you want to keep on the board,
Mm.
right? So I wouldn't
Yeah.
say it's the best synergy, but it can do some good things, right? You pull Iron Man out of your deck, or you pull some of these flip cards, but then it's also like maybe you would have just drawn them and played them out for free. So
Maybe, yeah, but you can also throw your negative back into your deck without Lockjaw hiding there, so you don't have that -1 power. Yeah, sure. Anything you
yeah,
want to get rid
yeah.
of.
Yep. Yeah, that's very fair. So I've seen some people playing that, but going down a little bit more the kind of the defensive strategy or playing against this location. Obviously, Storm, Scarlet Witch, Rhino, turning off the location when your opponent's expecting it to work.
Yeah.
Right. Um, I've even seen that with some Thanos decks. Right. People are like using it to their advantage, but then they're throwing the Reality Stone to turn off the location when they're done using it.
Mm.
Right.
Mm.
So it's
Yeah.
kind of like, hey, this is for me, but not for you. Which has kind of been fun to watch. Electro, right? I think that's something I've seen a little
Yeah.
bit of.
You get your
You
little
you
power.
get that extra energy, but then he goes back into your deck, so then you don't have the ongoing ability, right?
Yeah.
One downside there is like maybe you redraw him, right? And that's kind of not your best draw you're going to want to get, but who's to say if that's the upside's worth it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure. I, I did try one or two times to go through. Electro reminded me of this to go through with a Galactus deck. It's not worth it. It's not good right now. The chances of you accidentally pulling it out too early are too high. So don't suggest that.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, yeah, it could definitely turn itself off. I mean, on the Galactus side, I guess one thing I've read and kind of seen people talking about is maybe he's not the best when like to play into that location. Like if you kind of avoid that location and let your opponent load up that with heavy
Yeah,
statted cards, then you play it in another spot, right?
sure, sure.
And then, if you have Null, then you're throwing down Galactus, then Null, and you've just destroyed all their high power cards they pulled out of the location, right?
Hopefully they don't have a
Um,
Shang-Chi.
yeah, yeah. I mean, as long as you've got Ghost, right? You're good. But I mean, how would that work? You'd have to play like Wave on 3, Galactus on 4, and then you'd have to play Ghost on
On 5.
5, right?
Yeah, or you
Because
would
you because you couldn't have Ghost at like one of the other locations that would have been destroyed.
It would have
So
been destroyed, yeah, or you would have to have like limbo or something like that. Like there's fringe cases too, but yeah, literally it's not likely to happen.
yeah, yeah. So that kind of goes back to our Ghost conversation. Maybe that's not a reliable strategy. But any other thoughts on Quantum Tunnel? And with that, any other thoughts? But also, do you feel like you're going to pull your hair out in the next
I, I'm
30
not.
hours?
I'm not, and I mean, listening to the conversations the past couple of weeks, this is a common topic. People, discussing whether they like the hot and featured locations and everything. And I've been pretty firmly in the camp for a long time that I'm very, very fond of them doing this just for a couple of days each week, because I do think that it does mix up the meta, and I think that with such small deck sizes and so few cards, it's a very easy risk to run that the meta can become stale and like one card or one deck can overrun things. But having this mix up where you see a featured location that really doesn't synergize well with a lot of stuff like every week, it really does shake the snow globe of the meta up a little bit, and I really really think that that's a good positive thing. And I hope that they continue to do it, quite frankly.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I think I've said this before, and I'm sure you've heard me say it on the podcast, but I think it's stretched me to try new types of decks and new cards that I usually don't play with. Right
Yes.
when I have a location, I've played Lockjaw style decks, right? But there may be people out there that's really not been their cup of tea, and so maybe they have the cards, but they just don't really know how to play it or don't want to play it. But this can encourage them to kind of see the discourse online, see what people are playing, and try it out. And they may want to keep playing that after the location is gone, which I think is
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Totally.
Hey all, I wanted to take a quick moment to talk to you about MarvelSnapZone.com. Marvel Snap Zone is a one-stop shop for everything Marvel Snap on the internet. They have new articles nearly every day that cover deck building, strategy, card breakdowns, etc. They have a great collection tracker tool and a deck list builder that works off of that collection tracker so that you can know what decks you can build with your current card collection. They have guides and deck lists for all level of players and all collection level of players. Make sure to go to MarvelSnapZone.com and check it out now. Cool. Well, that kind of gets us through our normal weekly topics, but I know that you have brought some topics here to the show this week that you would like to discuss. So I will turn it
Sure.
over to you to kind of introduce our first topic.
Sure. So, I've never been the super competitive player. I don't like the grind, quite frankly, but I love the gameplay and I love the collecting and all of that. So I always do like talking about slightly different topics than like what the most powerful cards are, what the best decks are. So what I thought we could discuss a little bit this week was just sort of like the how we go through upgrading our cards and what sort of decisions we make with our boosters and our credits and everything. And if the behavior that I engage in in my collection management is normal or abnormal, and not in a positive or negative way, but just like I think talking about this a little bit might be interesting, because I don't think that it's something that I've really seen a conversation on before, and I think that thinking about it in a little different, or thinking about it at all, might prompt some interesting things. So the first thing that I want to ask is, or we can talk about, is after you finish a game, it pops up one of your cards has received the boosters, and it tells you how many you've gotten, how many you need to get to the next level. Do you push that button and automatically upgrade your cards if it's at, if you got 30 and you're ready to go to ultra or whatever? I don't even remember the cutoffs of everything, but if you've passed over the threshold to do the upgrade, do you push that button and do the upgrade, or do you wait, presuming you have the credits for it?
Interesting question. I normally do not.
Hmm.
Not to say I haven't, right? I definitely have, but I hoard my boosters. Not as much as some people online, right? I see people on Twitter with full Inktify decks and every variant in the game, stuff like that, right? I'm definitely not on that level, but I generally like to wait until I can upgrade a card multiple times before I upgrade it.
Okay.
Notable exceptions are if it is like it's common, it's a new card I have, right, or a new variant I'm playing with,
Hmm.
and I get enough credits to do it, I will usually try to get it at least to the 3D, the
Yeah.
blue border,
Yeah.
if I can, kind of
Yeah.
immediately. If like that first time playing with it, I get the credits. I will then upgrade it that first game,
Right.
that I get those credits, and try to get it to that level at least. But then I usually hoard from there until I have enough to get it to infinite.
Okay, cool. I'm definitely similar, at least getting to the 3D effects. I think that all the cards should get to 3D. And I think that a long term goal of mine is to have like the base variants up to infinite for everyone. I'm nowhere near close to that yet, but I'd love to have just like one copy of every base variant at infinite. A stepping stone to that will be to get every base card up to rare in 3D on the way. The next sort of question I've got, right? So the boosters are shared amongst all the variants for the cards, right? Do
Mm-hmm.
you then hoard variants or hoard boosters until you get a cool variant, or are you trying to get like some of the base variants? How do you choose when to spend your boosters and which card to spend your boosters on? Which
It's a great
variant?
question. Well, I'll start off by saying, my OCD definitely has something to say here, and I pivot between several things because I normally I started out, I say, well, I want a variant. Like I would
Yeah.
love to get. So my thought is, I'd love to get a variant I love of each card and get up to infinite. So kind of like you, but I would love it to be a variant of each card if possible.
Hmm.
Eventually, I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
again,
Yeah.
I've got, you know, maybe 20 to 30 variants up to infinite out of, however many 150 plus cards we have, right? I don't remember the exact number off the top of my head. Um, that are variants, and then I have some base cards up to infinite as well, and some that I've split multiple times, right? Um, so usually that's where my brain starts, but then I'll get a deck that I really like, and it'll be like, you know, a half to three-fourths of the cards in my deck are at infinite, and then I'll have
Hmm.
these like base cards that are not the variants that I have in that deck, and I'm like, well, now they look really dumb now next to my other cards that are at infinite. So I guess I was saving credits for when, or saving boosters for when I get a variant, but because it doesn't look good because they don't all match, I upgrade them then, right?
Interesting.
That has happened to me multiple times with decks.
But even if it's a different, like, variant style, if you got a chibi one of one and a base variant on another one, if they're sitting next to one another, you're going to want to upgrade them both to have the shiny borders. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, that's basically it. And
Okay.
yeah, and I tell myself, like, oh, it'd be, cool to have all of this type of a deck with only these types of variants, which I do have a couple, right?
Hmm.
But usually it's just like I really like this one variant of this one card, and then I like a variant of another card, and they're different styles or from different artists, right? So
Yeah, yeah,
I kind of have to just I have to stop myself there and say, no, it's okay. They can be together and be happy even if they're not the same type, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah. That being said, I mean I have, I posted this on Twitter like, maybe 2 weeks ago. I said, who wants to come face me off with their pixel only decks,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
We've
yeah.
all unlocked a ton of pixel cards, and then I was like, wait, I'm going to bed in like 15 minutes. What am I doing? I'm deleting this tweet. But Loot Muncher, friend of the podcast, actually saw it, so he said, hey, let's go. And man, I wiped the floor with him. Loot,
Oh,
if you
really?
listen to this, I hope you still had fun, but I had a pretty good deck that was only pixel cards. I haven't bought any pixel cards. I've just unlocked a lot, like we all have, right?
Sure, sure. That's
So
hilarious. Well,
yeah.
yeah, but and then I guess like that within that, like, or do you have favorite variants? So like I know that everyone hates the pixel cards, and I largely broad strokes agree, but there is one pixel card that is literally my favorite, or top two, three favorite variants in the whole game, and it's actually America Chavez's pixel card,
Mm.
and that might just be like a sentimentality thing because it was one of the first. Like I opened up that variant in the first day or two of playing last May. So it's just like I always thought it was a special one, and I thought that the animation was pretty cool on it, and I don't know, I like that one a lot, and it's one that I've split twice infinite, and it's my default America Chavez in any deck that she goes into at this point in time. So
Yeah. Well, I'm with you on the pixel stuff. I mean, At first I was on the bandwagon saying, oh, more pixel variants. Everybody complains about them, but they've definitely been growing on me. I wouldn't say they're my favorite, right? But I'm definitely more okay with them now.
Yeah.
Again, now that I've like built a pixel deck that kind of actually works. It's not
Yeah.
the perfect deck, but it kind of works. Um, but I'm with you. There's a couple pixel cards out there that I just think really slap. One being Rescue.
Oh,
Rescue just has this like you'll have to look it up, but it just gives me like this Mega Man vibes
okay.
that I
Yeah. Yeah.
really love.
Sure.
And then Omega Red, I also think just like feels like a character like in like a Super Nintendo game from the '90s, and just looks super cool in the pixel variant. So
Yeah.
those are actually
I've got
I
the
use
Omega
those
Red
variants
one.
for the yeah yeah
Yeah. Yeah.
I use the variants for those two cards that are pixeled.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Um, but overall, like favorite variants, I love I'm trying to remember what it's actually called. It's a Carnage one, and it's just titled Variant, but it's kind of the one where Carnage is like just standing full height, like facing the
Mm-hmm.
frame. And I have that one inkified with like a rainbow Oriole
Mm-hmm.
effect with the infinite split, and it
Mm-hmm.
just it just looks so good.
Yeah, the one with like the little strings running all off of him, or like the veins or whatever on the
Yep.
edges. Yeah, 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 yeah. I got that one Infinite Split too. It's I have it actually pulled up on my phone now. It's by Mark Bagley, Andrew Hennessy, and Jason Keith. That's the other nice thing that they did. If as second dinner is listening to this in their conference room, good job on the credits. I really do appreciate that. The artist credits up at the top, for sure.
Do you know what's so funny? Do you know
What's
what's so
that?
funny? I run a podcast about this game, and I didn't know I could click on that and see the artist names. I mean,
Yeah,
I knew that in the back of my mind, but I've
yeah.
never actually clicked on it until you just said that.
Oh, yeah.
And
They
there
totally.
it is. Mark Bagley, Andrew Hennessy, and Jason Keith right there.
Yeah, right there. That's it. So there you go. Now we're doing a service for you, and hopefully for all the listeners out there, they all know you can do it as well. So good job. Um, yeah. So to get back to, sorry, I answered. I asked you questions, but I didn't really answer them for myself too well. Um, the reason I asked about the upgrading after the end of a game thing, it's interesting because if you are running the variant you want, but like if you say you're doing like a pixel only deck like that, and you don't necessarily want the variant that's in that deck to get the boosters, I would never hit that button, right? I would just go on to the next one and then just save the boosters for whatever variant that I do actually want to be upgrading and splitting later on. But if I'm running a deck that has like my favorite copy of a variant in it, and I pass over the threshold to get to legendary or whatever, I totally will hit the button at that point and
Hmm.
upgrade it. The
That's
result
right.
sort
That's
of
very fair. Yeah.
the result of that behavior is that I do end up sort of hoarding credits a little bit more. I don't think about the upgrading that much, I guess. Like I guess my collection is far enough along the path that I'm not expecting to get cards in collector's cases very often. So I don't really expect to interact with the that collector's track all of the time. So I sort of forget about I quite frankly forget about the credits for a week or two at a time, and then I look down. I'm like, oh man, I've got like 6 or 7 thousand of these. I should probably spend some to get
Hmm.
back down, so I'm not hitting the cap or whatever. And so a very common thing that I'll do every couple of weeks is I'll go over to my collection tracker, and I'll go to the bottom left where you can sort it by whatever quality, and I'll go to upgradable, and then I'll sort it by decreasing so I can see who's got the most boosters and who I can split or whatever's going on. And I'll just sit there and upgrade any one card that is a variant that I like as far as it'll go. But the other flip side of that is there's a handful of cards that, like, I'm looking at my collection right now, that I've literally never upgraded and I've just gotten a bunch of boosters from. So for example, Dagger is still common. Crystal, I've
Hmm.
got 30 boosters on. At one point in time, I don't remember who it was. It might have been Storm. I was sitting on like 300 boosters just because I had never upgraded her at all. And I'll sit there and I'll spend a ton of credits going through it. It is actually kind of tedious going back and forth between the upgrading collection manager and the collection track. But then once I'm done with the whole thing, um, and I can't upgrade it anymore, and you return back to the collection track, all of the little flags, the little up arrows or whatever, the little animation that's on top of the card indicating which one is available to upgrade and is not has disappeared, and I have to click back on the main menu and go back to the collection manager to reactivate it. And this is 100% a whale boomer problem for me playing oddly with the game. But again, second dinner, when you guys are listening to that, I think that that's a little bugged interaction, and is something that might be worth looking at to make sure that those upgradable uh, animations don't disappear.
Yeah.
So minor
Yeah.
quibble.
Yeah, no, and I've noticed the same thing before, so I hear you there. I think that's valuable.
Yeah.
So as you're talking, obviously we're both looking at our collections here, and so a couple of things that I noticed. I have every card that I have is at least at 3D except for 5 cards. There are
Okay.
only, or sorry, 4 cards. There's only 4 cards that I don't have. Actually, let me see if that's incorrect. Yeah, there are 4 cards that I don't have at 3D, and it's because I just don't have enough boosters. Which is funny. Like I've played with Titania, but I like have only been able to upgrade her to uncommon. I just like have not been landing boosters on her. Quake is one that I have a great variant that I like, but I never play Quake.
Yeah.
Uh, Luke Cage, I just haven't played a ton yet, and so again, I just haven't met uncommon. And then I just got Shuri last night, actually. So
Okay.
Shuri is not. So those are my 4 cards that I haven't upgraded to 3D or higher.
Yeah. That's funny. I have like 30 of them.
No, yeah, and we all do it. But I was the same way until probably when they did the first shuffle down of cards from Series 5 to Series 4. I've been hoarding my credits. I got to 10,000 credits. I maxed out,
Right.
and that's what I did. I got every card that I could at least to 3D.
Yeah. Okay.
And so that was a mainly recent thing. But the other thing I wanted to see, do you know off the top of your head which one of your cards you have the most boosters for?
Well, it's definitely Agatha.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Yeah, that makes sense. How many do you have for Agatha?
I've got 5 splits on my Agatha school teacher. 4 splits, and the last one is at infinite. So I'm ready to split her one more time. I don't know how many that adds up to, but 500 or 600. But another thing about just me in this game is I don't play nearly as much as most streamers do. This is totally like a phone watching people play thing for me. So I do like my collection a lot, but I do not collect as many boosters. I do all my dailies plus probably an extra 50% of gaming a day on this. So I would not be the person to be comparing the largest collection and the largest number of boosters. I would not be the person to measure that against.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I found it interesting. I looked through all my cards to see how many boosters I have for each card. I was surprised. Okoye is the one I have the most for.
Oh yeah.
607, and I've split her, but I don't feel the need to ever split her again or normally play her that much. So those 607 boosters are probably going to sit there for a little while.
Yeah, but that makes a lot of sense because she, was so strong for such a long time, and then got Nerf City.
And she also had a season pass variant, so then you got boosters from that.
Yeah.
And that's the one I have upgraded. So yeah, so kind of interesting to kind of look at the collection. Yeah, I think that's one of the fun things about Marvel Snap is kind of like you have your collection, you have your variants upgraded to the, the levels you do, and everybody's collection is going to be slightly different. 100%. One thing, this is dumb, but when I'm in a match, and like I see my hand with all my cards, I just want to be able to like run my finger over them if I'm playing on my computer, and they all kind of just move, like back and forth,
Yeah.
Sometimes I do that because it just looks like I should be able to do that, and it doesn't, and I get really disappointed.
Sorry for your disappointment.
No, it's okay.
One last question, I guess. When you are trying to build a deck or put your cards in, do you put whatever your highest level of upgrade is, or do you put your last infinite split? So for me, what I do is I upgrade a card all the way to infinite, and then I leave that infinite card in my deck until I get enough boosters to split the next one to infinite, because I think that the border is so cool, and I don't want to have like a common with a foil background in my deck. I'd much rather have the level below with the infinite background and then wait till I get up to another infinite background to get the foil added onto it, if that makes sense.
It does. So for my case, I'm generally the same. Eventually I'd like to have like Inkify gold, like more Inkify and gold. I only have a few. But usually I won't play one of the foil cards, like the
Hmm.
rainbow background effects, the couple different options,
Hmm.
until it's up to infinite, like
Yeah.
you. So like I'll
Yeah.
split it, I'll keep using the base card, and sometimes even then, just depending on how it looks with the rainbow effect, kind of I think there's varying degrees of how cards actually look with that.
Hmm.
I may still not use it even if I upgrade it to infinite again. Um, I'd say the exception for me is like when I've gotten certain cards to like Inkify or to gold, then I'm like, oh yeah, I'm slapping this baby in there, even if it's not split, because I got to show it off to people, right?
Absolutely. I still don't have a gold background. I don't have a single one in my entire collection. I got a couple Inkifies, but no golds. It's bummer
Um,
central.
yeah, when the beta started and everybody's playing um, Devil Dino Moon Girl, right? I don't,
Yeah.
those days, Carnage Nova, the dark days. No, I mean I played it and had a ton of fun, but I get why they changed it. I had Sentinel in that deck, right? Sentinel was a great add
Uh-huh.
to that deck to get your hand size. So Sentinel was like the first card I split, and I just kept splitting, and that was like the only card I split until I got a gold, like really early
Oh,
on,
okay.
and then I don't think I've got a single one since then.
It's
So that
hard.
was like that was a long time ago.
Yeah, and it's hard. It's supposed to be rare, right? It's supposed to be a big, exciting thing, and I'm looking forward to experiencing it for the first time myself.
Yep. Yeah, I do have on the Inkify side. I have I think three
Mm,
Inkifys. I want to say. Brood, Iron Man, and Carnage. So
okay.
yeah, but I mean, I see some people that have like 40, and I'm like, well, that's not me.
As someone who, those are people who have a little more time to play the game than you and I do.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. Yeah, no, it's always fun to talk collections. I think it's just we don't talk about it enough because we can get focused on the competitive, which I think is good, but I think there's just I love the art and kind of the pizzazz that this game has.
Yeah, one of my favorite like memories of being like a middle schooler was be looking through going over to a friend's house and looking through our binders of baseball cards and X-Men cards and everything, and trading and just comparing who looks cool and whatnot, and comparing collections. And I guess the last thing I can sort of say about this whole situation is they're building out features, they're adding stuff, and hopefully someday a friends list does appear within Marvel Snap, and so that we can like directly challenge people and just sort of have that next social level. And if that ever comes about, an amazing feature within the friends list would be able to, if you were able to browse your friends' collections, just sort of check
Yeah.
out like what sort of variants they've got, and it'd be another thing to connect with people about, and that would be really, really, really nice.
With that, I know they'll never do it. I shouldn't say never, but I'm 99% sure they'll never do it. But I would love to be able to trade variants with
Sure,
people
sure.
and be like, I've split this one. You don't have this variant here. Have this cool card, and you can give me this cool, and I don't have one of your splits.
Yeah.
I would love that because it just kind of that nostalgia of like trading cards from our childhood. But
Hmm.
I know they probably won't do that because obviously that's how the collection. That's how you progress your collection to kind of you progress in this game by splitting cards.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it's kind of a logistical issue as well to try to do something like that.
Well, it's also that gets into like account selling and like that opens up external economy issues that are really difficult to sort through. So,
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely fair.
oh well.
Awesome. I believe we're running down to our last few minutes here. I believe you had one last topic that you kind of want to give a shout out about, as well as kind of a shout out of, how listeners can support you and support some upcoming events.
Absolutely. So I don't know. I assume this will come out today or tomorrow. And a really big thing is happening this weekend on February 18th. For anyone who hasn't heard already, Kawatech, Loot Muncher, and Super Tech God are putting on the first ever in-person Marvel Snap tournament. It's going to be called the Content Creators Clash. And they got 16 people on the 16 competitors, and I don't know for a fact if they've announced the entire list or not, so I don't want to spoil everything, but a lot of people are on there. There's Dara JN, there's I think Alexander Kochia is showing up, Eggs for Sale, Valentine, D Money, I can't remember everyone, but there's 16 of them, and I don't want to commit someone that's not on the list to
No,
being
totally.
there. So a lot of people that you've seen and heard, and all the people that you love, will be there. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be in New York City, and they got $1,000 prize pool for it, and a little side bonus. I personally built the trophy for it. I 3D printed it, and I don't want to spoil it too much. It's in Super Tech God's living room right now, so it's sitting there waiting for everyone. And I'm pretty stoked to donate that to the community, and hopefully people will be stoked to have that and bring it home. Yeah, whoever wins will be stoked to bring it home, I guess. And then the whole thing is happening on Saturday, February 18th, which is going to be from 4 to 7 p.m. Eastern time. And it's going to be streaming, I believe, first and foremost on Kawatech's channel. And it'll be interesting because there'll be, a split, bracket format with a losers bracket on the bottom, so people will still be able to win even if they go double elimination rounds. And the way they're setting up is going to be 2 decks, and you have to bring 2 decks. It'll be open deck lists, and you can't have duplicate cards, so they have to be 2 completely unique decks. I'm not entirely sure exactly how deck selection is going to work and everything. I'm looking forward to watching and learning and seeing how it goes. But I really do think that this sort of larger tournament bracket style thing is gonna take off and snap, because of the speed of the games. And I think that they're doing awesome, getting their feet under the ground. And I'm really, really looking forward to watching it. And I hope everyone has an opportunity to come check it out and cheer on all your favorite creators.
Awesome. Well, thank you for giving that shout out. Didn't know about the trophy. You even left that as a surprise for me. So excited to see that. Excited to see that this weekend. I'll definitely be tuning in, and it'll be interesting to see who takes home the win there. So
absolutely.
Make sure you're following and you're subscribed to Kawatech on his Twitch channel, so that you get the notification there. You know when they go live, and you can make sure you don't miss any of that this weekend.
Absolutely.
And then, Chalker, will you just give us one final shout out of where people can find you online and they can follow your content?
Sure. The best spot is just YouTube. Chalker7, youtube.com/Chalker7. That's where I'd love people to check it out. I do a bit of history stuff. I like talking about like where the characters came from. I think there's a lot of characters in this game that people haven't been familiar with. I've been a little busy lately, so I haven't uploaded it in about 5-6 weeks, but I've got a script written for a video on Hell Cow and her entire history. I literally read every single comic from every single appearance of hers in Marvel history, and I can't wait to record that and share that with you guys. But it's not going to be up for at least a week or 2, so we'll be there. But come check it out. Come check out YouTube is where I want you.
Well, I, for one, will not be missing out on the Hell Cow lore. So
yeah,
I will be looking forward to that.
There we go.
Well, thank you again so much for being here. Always appreciate having you on the show.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Listeners, thank you so much for listening. Make sure to go follow Chalker on his YouTube channel, as well as make sure you're checking out that tournament this weekend. Thank you so much for listening, and we will catch you in the next episode. Can't Stop Snapping is a podcast written, recorded, produced, and hosted by Michael Thurman. Thanks for listening.